Welcome to this tutorial that provides guidance on understanding the meaning of scores from PROMIS measures. In this tutorial, I will review the type of scores used by PROMIS, what group of people was used when determining what is average, and mild, moderate, and severe thresholds. In other tutorials, I will cover additional topics, including norms, comparisons with specific patient populations, comparing PROMIS scores to other measure scores. This is the Prozetastone project, meaningful change in PROMIS scores, G-codes, and NeuroQual. PROMIS uses T-scores. A T-score is a type of standard score that has a mean of 50 and a standard deviation of 10. High PROMIS scores mean more of what is being measured. Sometimes this is desirable and sometimes this is not desirable. For example, having high levels of physical function is good. Having high levels of depression is not good. Knowing the mean score is 50 is helpful, but knowing who was used to establish that mean is also important. We call this the reference population. A reference population is a large sample of people representative of a relevant population. This is also known as the centering sample. For example, a mean of 50 in the U.S. general population would be interpreted differently than a mean of 50 in patients with a specific disease or condition. For PROMIS, the reference population is usually the U.S. general population. You can see a table of all PROMIS measures and their reference populations on the healthmeasures.net website on the Interpret PROMIS Scores page. Here, for example, you can see that the PROMIS cognitive function measures have a mean of 50 in a sample representing the U.S. general population. Here it's labeled centering sample. The psychosocial illness impact and self-efficacy for managing chronic conditions measures both have a clinical sample as the reference population. Knowing a person's T-score lets you know how that person compares to the reference population. A person with a fatigue T-score of 60 is one standard deviation worse than the U.S. general population average. A person with a fatigue T-score of 40 is one standard deviation better than the U.S. general population average. T-scores are sometimes confused with percentiles. This is an error. PROMIS T-scores generally range from 20 to 80, not 0 to 100. PROMIS T-scores can also be interpreted as representing normal, mild, moderate, or severe symptoms or dysfunction. These are the default thresholds or cut points. For symptoms like fatigue or depression, scores below 55 are within normal limits. Symptom scores between 55 and 60 are mild. Symptom scores between 60 and 70 are moderate. And a symptom score over 70 is considered severe. For measures of function, like physical function or cognitive function, you can use the values here. These are general guidelines, and within a specific group of patients or specific PROMIS domain, these thresholds may vary. These thresholds can be used to help interpret a PROMIS score. Here we have PROMIS physical function that ranges from poor to excellent. Research conducted by Roxanne Jensen and colleagues found people who exercised regularly, did not need a mobility aid, and those individuals with prostate cancer all had physical function scores within normal limits. Patients with colorectal cancer had mild dysfunction. Individuals who used a cane and those with lung cancer had moderate dysfunction, and those who used a wheelchair had severe physical dysfunction. The PROMIS global measures also have thresholds for excellent, very good, good, fair, and poor health. To learn more about interpreting PROMIS scores, watch our other video tutorials. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Support was provided by a grant from the National Center on Advancing Translational Sciences at the National Institutes of Health. Thank you.